We begin tonight with a judge who makes life-altering decisions for families and those with disabilities, now accused of making racist comments and using shocking, derogatory language. Thank you for joining us for 7 News Detroit at 6. I'm Mike Duffy. 7 investigator Heather Catallo joins us now with more about why an Oakland County probate judge has been removed from her docket. Heather?
Mike, a high-ranking probate court official says he's been recording Judge Kathleen Ryan's statements for years. Even though probate court administrator Edward Hutton says he's been harassed by Judge Ryan, he says he does not want this to be about him. Hutton says he's coming forward now because he wants to protect the people who have to face Judge Ryan in the courtroom.
The Honorable Kathleen Ryan presiding.
Good morning. You may be seated.
After more than 13 years on the bench, Oakland County Chief Probate Pro Tem Judge Kathleen Ryan is out of her courtroom. Chief Probate Judge Linda Hallmark removed Judge Ryan from her docket last week, announcing that a complaint about internal allegations of unprofessional conduct was sent to the Judicial Tenure Commission. Judge Ryan was arrested in 2021 for domestic violence, but those charges were later dismissed. And now she's back in the headlines.
Well, if you're black from any other country, you're doing way better. If you're an American black person, then you're a lazy piece of.
The 7 investigators have obtained the recordings that county officials say prompted Judge Ryan's removal.
Oh, he's just I have no use for him.
She's made it a living hell in the past 6 years. I mean, it's been terrible. It's cost me relationships. I think it's affected my health. Can't sleep.
Attorney Edward Hutton is the Oakland County Probate Court Administrator. He's in charge of running everything that's not under the judge's purview inside one of the state's largest probate courts. Hutton alleges Judge Ryan has been calling him both during work and after hours for years. And Hutton says during those hours and hours of calls, Judge Ryan said highly inappropriate things.
Why did you start recording the calls?
I just felt like it wasn't going to change. Nothing's manipulated in it. It's conversations that I was a part of, and I'm absolutely willing to testify to the authenticity of every single one of them.
I can honestly say that, okay, I'm not systemically racist, I'm a new racist. I never was, but now I am because you're shoving the down my throat and making allegations that you don't know about. You're telling me who I am and you've never met me. You. You.
Hutton says the judge also used homophobic slurs about other elected officials.
You know.
And that's not all.
A lot of times they were conversations about sexual encounters that she's having with various individuals. I mean, in intimate detail.
Hutton says for years he felt like he had to play along, and he says for years he was afraid to speak up.
I didn't want to lose my job, and I didn't want to be in her crosshairs. It's such a David and Goliath situation. I don't have the power. I'm not elected. I could get fired tomorrow.
On May 24th, Hutton says he sent Chief Judge Linda Hallmark a notice of sexual harassment.
For 3 months, nothing happened.
That's why on August 22nd, Hutton says he decided to send the recordings to the Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court, Oakland County Executive David Coulter, and other public officials. And he also contacted me.
I just want to make it right. I haven't filed a lawsuit. I'm not looking for a payday. I want to keep my job and do it in peace. And I want the people in Oakland County that come to court to get a fair shake, to have their day in court, to have an unbiased trier of fact.
In that email, Hutton said Judge Ryan, quote, has vocalized her hate and contempt for various protected groups. Once the recordings were shared with those state and county officials, Judge Ryan was removed from her docket. In a statement, County Executive Coulter said, quote, there is absolutely no place for harassment of any kind or for racist or homophobic language by anyone at Oakland County, especially by someone the public must be confident will act fairly and impartially. The alleged conduct and abhorrent comments made by Judge Ryan merited her removal from the probate court docket pending further investigation.
Is Judge Ryan fit to be on the bench?
Absolutely not. Nobody with that much hate in their heart for certain people or certain groups of people, I don't believe that they could possibly make fair, unbiased decisions regarding them.
I did reach out to Judge Kathleen Ryan to talk to her about this. Her attorneys sent me this statement that says, quote, "We respect the authority of the Michigan Supreme Court. However, we look forward to vindicating Judge Ryan in the appropriate forum." I also spoke to probate judge Daniel O'Brien. He says Judge Ryan's friends are supporting her and believe these statements are totally out of character for her.
All right, certainly a lot here, but what's next with the Judicial Tenure Commission?
Well, they cannot confirm or deny whether they are pursuing an investigation. There has been some reporting that suggested that the complaint against the judge involved an inappropriate personal relationship. Hutton says that is not true. He says there was no physical contact. This was strictly a sexual harassment complaint about her alleged comments that started all of this. But again, he says the bigger issue here is what the judge says about people in protected classes, and he's hoping that that is what the JTC will focus on. So everybody's just sort of waiting to see what they will do.
And it sounds like this is in its early days. We know that you're going to stay on top of it, so
we will follow it.
Appreciate it.
So in not so surprising news, we have yet another judge, another staunchly anti-black judge who can't seem to not let their anti-blackness just be at bay, or just not have any anti-blackness at all. They just have to feel the need to want to spew out any and everything that they want to, and then be in positions of authority. I always tell people that they have removed the Klan hood and the Klan robe and traded it in this case, a judge robe or a police uniform or a lawyer attire, or whatever the case may be, but something that gives them some kind of an authority to do whatever it is that they want to do. Let me just start off by saying I am not surprised at anything that this woman has said at all. And kudos to the person that decided to take it upon themselves to record this woman saying something. And I can see why they waited to release this stuff. Not so much waited, but they were basically gathering intel. Like I've told people before, it's good if you have one piece of information, but if you can get repeated times of this happening, then they can't tell you, oh, it was a one-off thing. Then when you get repeated times of it happening, then you can say, okay, this is definitely who this person is. It's no denying that this is how they feel about certain and particular groups of people. But this woman was absolutely horrific. I mean, not only was she staunchly anti-black, but she was this and that phobic. She also allegedly was harassing people in a very non-consenting way, in a host of other things, and had the nerve to sit there on the bench and pass sentencing and conviction to every other person. What she needs to do is look in the mirror and point at herself and realize how terrible of a person she is. She needs to be the one that needs to be in the hot seat. And also what it makes it so scary, and I guess you could say dangerous about her position, is the fact that she is a judge. So imagine how she was sentencing certain people, let's just say black people, when we already now know how she feels about black people. I mean, you heard what she said in one of the parts right there. She says, notice she said foreign blacks or something along those lines. They're smart and intelligent and everything, but the American blacks, they're lazy and all this stuff. Where have we heard that before? We've heard that so many times over the years. We're still hearing it today. So that tells you right there how she feels about black Americans, which is no surprise because that's how many of them feel about us in particular. They love to say how low IQ we are. They love to say how dumb we are. And they love to talk about 13% of the population and now like 90% of the crime. I don't know how they keep adjusting those numbers to go up as far as crime goes, even though those numbers are a lie, but they keep keeping us at 50%, at 13%, which is also a fallacy if you ask me. So again, I'm not in the least bit surprised that this is this woman's behavior and that this is the tone in which she went with, because she already was like that 9 times out of 10 before she even got on that bench. The animus that she had and the vitriol that she had towards black people, specifically black Americans, is how she felt before she raised her right hand and swore on that Bible to take an oath to be a judge for the court. That's how she's felt. That's how she's always felt. And then she had the nerve to say, I'm a new racist. That's why if you seen the thumbnail, I said, a new racist is still a racist. I don't know what she meant when she said a new racist. There's something about her not being systematically racist. We don't know that. Considering how you feel about black people, you are part of that system. You actually hold a very interesting, important role in that system. And black people's lives could be in your hands. So what I would also suggest is, now knowing how she feels about black people, they need to go back and examine every case that she was over, every trial she presided over, where there was a black person on trial, and really thoroughly look at what she chose as an outcome when it came to sentencing and conviction and charges and all of that. Because she could have had a very biased tone when it came to that black person who was on trial. Not saying that the person is going to get off, because who knows, they probably actually did what they did, but still go back and look at it, because she could have did something. She could have made something happen that wasn't supposed to, considering how she felt, or not felt, but how she feels, because there's no way you're telling me that she doesn't feel like this way now. And I don't know if they mentioned it in the video or not, or the audio or not, because it was a pretty lengthy audio. I wasn't expecting the audio to be 6 minutes long. I don't know if they mentioned when these recordings actually happened, like how recent they were, or maybe they were a few months ago, or maybe even into last year. But that's besides the point. The point of the matter is that this woman said this, and she said it with her chest. And she said it unapologetically. She didn't stagger her voice. She didn't stutter. She meant every word that came out of her trout mouth. And the scary part about it is, she's not the only person who's a judge like this who feels the same exact way as a lot of these other judges. They come in there with a bias, and the thing is, when you're a judge, you're not supposed to have a bias. You're supposed to be very neutral. You're supposed to be censored. You're supposed to hear both sides and then come up with a proper decision. But with how she's talking, we already know how she feels about us, which means a black person could easily get hemmed up by her decision making. Even if there was evidence to prove that that black person was innocent, she could still hem them up. I could see her right now. If there was a thing when it came to reparations and she was one of the judges, she would be one of the ones that definitely vote nay when it all came down to it. I know she would be. It's very obvious. She already has that bias locked in. So that's how she's always going to be. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to her position. I don't know what's going to happen to her. As far as it now, they said she's been removed from the docket, which means she pretty much is not a judge at the current moment. Hopefully she's terminated altogether, and they need to bring her up on some hate crime charges, if you ask me. Especially if it was a case that she was over involving a black person who was on trial in her courtroom. Because who knows how the trial could have been, but thanks to now knowing how she is, there it is. But again, like I said before, and I can't stress it enough, I'm not in the least bit surprised or shocked that those words came out of her mouth.